what about that meeting, the meeting between Ma Ying-jeou and Tsai Ing-wen? Will that eventually mend the ties between these two parties, which has already been infighting for quite some years, particularly during the past election season? Professor.
Well, it has been a long-awaited meeting because people all knew that this is a symbolic meeting between the two of them. Actually, not much has been accomplished. We've heard different sides giving their side of the stories, but still, Tsai Ing-wen and Ma Ying-jeou did not have much of a overlap. We can also observe the political differences between Ma and Tsai, or KMT and DPP, particularly when Tsai and Ma failed to really discuss the most important challenge or policy facing Taiwan today, that is the cross-strait policy vis-a-vis mainland China. And we can understand that Tsai Ing-wen obviously is trying to stay silent and avoid this issue because obviously she hasn't come up with a clear roadmap for her administration. And Tsai Ing-wen did say something about the South China Sea issue. When Ma suggested that DPP should not be absent from the Taipei Island dispute, Tsai Ing-wen did say, please do not misjudge DPP's position on this matter. Okay. And that's very interesting because people have always speculated that DPP might relinquish Taipei Island after they assume power.
What do you make of this meeting? This is in transition. In May, Tsai Ing-wen is going to come into power. So can anything really happen during this period of time, Mr. Paal?
Well, the specific events are really going to be left for the new administration to introduce after it takes office. And so looking for signs of departures or new initiatives would not be appropriate at this kind of meeting. Now, my long history, as you mentioned, goes back with a lot of American transitions where former rivals have to sit down and hand over the baton from the outgoing leader to the incoming leader. And in my experience, these are not smooth and easy meetings, but people grit their teeth and they try to smile for the cameras and make sure that they're sending a signal of cooperation so that we don't have, the outgoing administrators destroying files or messing up the computers, and then the incoming people can come in and have some reasonable basis to start business on the first day. That would be about the most I would hope to get out of a meeting like this.
Well, very realistic picture you're providing over there, Mr. Paal. But let me ask you this, Mr. Tsang, here in Beijing. One specific issue already over there, 2013 agreement between Taiwan and the mainland about the service and trade agreement. This, of course, has been in dispute in Taiwan for a long time, but it is now in the legislature to be reviewed, and people can and should expect some result in the near future. This is also taking place during this transition time between the two political parties, which have very different views about how to deal with the mainland to begin with. Mr. Tsang, what can be the fate of this specific document, which is eventually very important for Taiwan?
Of course, when Ma Ying-jeou was in charge, DPP played the role of opposition party. They did everything humanly possible to stop, to object events, even though are useful, helpful, to facilitate the exchange, economic development between the two sides on Taiwan Strait. This time, I think Tsai Ing-wen is facing the challenge now. She's in charge. DPP is the party in power. So what she can do in legislation, for example, whether she would facilitate the passing of this trade and commodity agreement or not, is the first test of how serious she meant to do things good for the people in Taiwan and also maintain a good interaction with mainland China. The test is real, it's hard, it's right there.
Professor Chang, help us to analyze what kind of a balance does she need to take right here? Is she, according to your analysis, capable of doing it?
I have to say that it is a very difficult situation for her. I wouldn't envy her position right now because on the one hand, she has Taiwanese independence fundamentalists or these radicals behind her Those are the people who supported her into today's position. However, at the same time, once you are in power, you're facing the cold political reality that Taiwan's economy is highly dependent upon cross-strait exchanges. Therefore, she has to find an optimal path in between the moderates and the radicals. However, I would say that Tsai Ing-wen is trying to stay ambiguous and trying to stay vague at this moment because she has not been able to reach a political compromise within her own party. And I have to say that she is not able to satisfy Beijing's expectation about a 1992 consensus and at least recognizing that both sides belong to a one China. And words through the grapevine in Taipei is that by the time May 20th comes along, she will not be able to come up with a satisfactory answer, but she will try to make Beijing less than totally disillusioned, at most disappointed, and staying with her for some hopes. She's trying to buy more time, in fact.
What do you make of the capability of Ms. Tsai? Will May the 20th be a dividing timeline for us to understand where she is going and her party is going? Or she can, and she would be, remain vague for a long time. And what would that mean, really, for cross-strait relations, Mr. Paal?
Well, nobody really knows the answer to your questions except Tsai herself. However,
well, probably not even her, probably.
But when May 20 comes, we'll know where she has drawn her bottom line, and it probably will not be in the same place as Beijing's bottom line. I think for both sides, there's probably some advantage in maintaining a degree of tension. The question is, how far do you push that tension without crashing through and creating a pretext for a crisis? And so there's going to be a lot of testing in this period, and I think it's going to be one where the people of Taiwan have got doubts about the mainland, and she wants to make sure she expresses her own doubts. At the same time, there are plenty of people, even in her own party, who have developed ties across the strait that have been very productive in the time since Ma came into power. And therefore, I think it's going to be important not to have those people have their interests suffer. And meanwhile, she's going to have a third direction or vector to her policy, which is to expand Taiwan's economic links to non-mainland markets. And this is going to be a tough challenge in a period of economic slowdown globally.
Will this 2013 Service and Trade Agreement, which is now, I mentioned earlier, in the process of being reviewed by the legislature in Taiwan, will that be the very first sign that people will be able to judge where the political atmosphere in Taiwan is going?
Well, I think it's the first thing you would judge is the speech she gives at her inaugural ceremony.
That's right.
The second thing will be the legislative agenda. And the legislative agenda for the 2013 agreement is one where I would not expect an incoming Tsai administration to simply endorse the agreement. My experience has been that when new administrations of a different party come in, but they see merit in the agreement, but they've been in a different political position, they say this agreement needs review or this agreement has components that need revision. The good news for cross-strait relations is that with a strong majority in the legislature, with a strong leadership in the legislature loyal to Tsai Ing-wen, that it's possible to avoid the kind of intra-party struggle that went on between Ying-jeou and Wang Jinping when he was Speaker of the Legislative Yuan. Their games were played, and one of the reasons that the Sunflower Movement erupted was that people felt that the normal process for legislative consideration was being subverted by parliamentary maneuver. There's less chance of that now, and therefore more prospect of a smooth implementation once they decide how much of the agreement they want to accept.
Mr. Tsang, living here on the mainland, you get very familiar with the mentalities here about how to develop a closer relations across the Taiwan Straits, and people why they are so much interested in this and concerned about the vulnerabilities. Mr. Tsang, of course, we see a lot of things going on at the same time. The United States presidential election going on, they have primaries, sometimes they're targeting China on certain kinds of debates, whether have an impact or not, that's another question. And then you also have a transition inside Taiwan when it comes to political parties. You also have China becoming more mature when it comes to international relations and regional roles. What do you make of, at this moment, this transition? Will all factors contributing to what we consider as a smooth transition, or actually there could be a lot of factors in fact urging us to be on alert?
I expect a rather smooth transition because Taiwan is mature in the area of democratic practice. In the past, as you know, in the 2008, is a different transition
Right.
from Li Denghui to Chen Shui-bian to Ma Ying-jeou. This time is more stressful, it's more sensitive. Nevertheless, I think the reason they did not discuss cross-strait relations at the one-on-one meeting is to avoid a controversial issue, to make the process seemingly amicable. Nevertheless, this test is on its road. For example, DPP cannot afford not to deliver its promises to the voters 4 years from now. For example, if Taiwan's economy goes down the drain, social stability is gone, and mainland China's inaction is affected, even become a so-called troublemaker in the eyes of the American authorities. So it's lucky, it deserved to win this leadership position in Taiwan, but the test is coming, and it's a serious test. I do hope Tsai Ing-wen would look at the larger picture, not thinking of the party interest itself, consider the Taiwan's progress economically, socially, and politically, at the same time maintain active and positive interaction with mainland China, dealing well with neighboring countries. In the long run, everybody get benefit from her leadership. Hopefully that is the case.
Professor Cheng, your final words also about the current situation to expect.
I would have to say that it is a situation that worries a lot of people today, because we're looking at Taiwan facing economic downturn, yet Tsai Ing-wen has not come up with a really viable and convincing strategy.
Right.
She puts up a new software policy, which suggests that cutting down economic exchanges with mainland China while expanding trade relations with Southeast Asian states. However, if you look at the statistics, it doesn't seem likely, because in the year 2015, we're looking at Taiwan, mainland China two-way trade at $150 billion US. How can you manage to bridge that gap with ASEAN states somewhere around $80 billion US trade? And not only that, there are a lot of other issues that has to be handled. So I don't think Tsai can manage through this transition period safely.
All right, Cheng You-ping, Gregory Yingnien Tsang.